Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Rich Woman Rising podcast. I'm your host, Eloise Tompkins, and I'm a money confidence coach and psychologist. And I love helping women to change their relationship with money from the inside out. And I know if you've listened to my podcast before, I say this literally for every single guest. But I really am. I just truly get so genuinely excited. And I'm so excited today to present Shelly Horton, who is literally the personification of confidence. She is a TV journalist, a sought after MC, women's health advocate, runs her own company, Shell Shocked Media, where she teaches speaker and media training. She runs Speak with Impact workshops, and she has had a 30-year career encompassing so many different roles, including 11 years on the ABC, 8 years at Channel 7, 6 years with Fairfax, and 5 years for ET America. And in her current 9-year tenure, I can never say that word, at Channel 9, she has been a weekly feature on Today, Today Extra, and one of my favorites is 9 Honey. She is more than a women's health advocate because she speaks up for things that she's really, really passionate about, and some things that I think I certainly relate to, and I'm sure that a lot of you listening along will be relating to as well. Campaigning to Parliament to destigmatise taboo topics like choosing to be child-free. Me too. Bladder leakage, heavy periods, and perimenopausal depression. So she is an absolute force to be reckoned with. And Shelly, I'm so excited to be chatting all things money with you today.
I am so excited to talk to you, but also because I'm hoping I can pick your brain and get some of the psychology around my money block. So this is basically free therapy. Okay.
You're not the first person to say that. So, bring it on. And we get to share it with the world as well. And hopefully it drops some insights for other people as well. And I love that you're going to be so open. And I know some of your story already, and I can't wait to share that with people because I don't know, I look at you now and your gorgeous outfit, your gorgeous hair, your gorgeous makeup. If you're not watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to the audio, she's just next level. And I'm here in my, sparkly pink top, but
You look fantastic. Look, but I have to let people know if they are watching, this is not how I regularly look. Only an hour ago, I had wet hair from the pool and a terry toweling cover up on. So I'm doing a shoot this afternoon. So that's why my hair and makeup's done. So please
I thought it was for
remember.
me, Shelly. I thought it was for me.
I should have said
Dang.
that.
I love it. I love it. It just works really well. But let's start because you are this absolute dynamo and have so much energy, and there's such a personality and presence to you, and so much influence when you speak and when you talk. But I know that it hasn't always been that way for you. Like we were talking earlier, growing up in a small town of 500 people?
5,000. Yeah,
5,000.
I grew up in Kingaroy in country Queensland, which is famous for peanuts and Sir Joe Bajoki Peterson. So that's about it. And the population 5,000 included all of the farms. So our town was so small, we had no traffic lights and no roundabouts, no McDonald's. It was a very small country town.
Mm,
Um, and I think growing up in that sort of environment shapes you for the rest of your life. For a lot of time, I was kind of resented that, and now that I'm 51, I'm like, what a gift that was to
mm,
grow up without all of the pressures that teenagers have now. But it certainly did shape my money mindset because mum and dad were school teachers their entire careers, and
mm,
so there wasn't much money around. But we kind of did a lot of things that didn't cost a lot of money because we lived in the country and it was like you get outside and play.
mm. So there was kind of this sense of you had this awareness of what money was, but there wasn't, and I agree with you, there's so much pressure. I'd hate to be a teenager today.
Yeah.
How did you know in that case? If you just went out and did stuff that didn't really cost much, how did you develop that sense that money is even a thing?
I definitely got it from my parents. And my parents are amazing. Like I look at them and go, how the hell did they provide what they did to us on such a small income? But mum and dad did really smart things. Like there's this incredible program called a teachers exchange program. And so I was in grade 2, my brother was in preschool, and mum and dad moved to Canada for a year where they swapped jobs with two Canadian teachers. So the Canadian teachers ended up in Kingaroy and we ended up in a very small town outside of Toronto. But that meant we got to live in that country and experience it, but still paying, like getting paid a wage, So we had incredible experiences like that, but it wasn't like lavish, holidays and things like that. It was very much that mum and dad taught us that you work hard, you save, and then you can, get rewarded for it.
Work hard, save, get rewarded.
Mm.
How do you feel that moves into your adult life and to who you are now?
I will confess that I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I know that a lot of that through other therapy that I've done has come from a money scarcity mindset. And I'm trying to work on that. I'm trying to not be grabby at the next thing, but to actually appreciate. But I also feel conflicted because I'm so proud of my work ethic.
Mm,
And so I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm in two minds because I love and feel proud of how hard I work, but I also know that my body needs some downtime. And particularly now in perimenopause, I'm learning that even more, that I just can't be up
mm.
on stage for 2 days emceeing a conference and expect to perform again the next day. Whereas when I was younger, I certainly could. So I'm having to structure some of my workload so I get a bit of downtime. And that is also affects my income.
That's really interesting. That's something I have heard before that, and we were kind of talking about this just before we hit record, that aging can really impact just our energy levels. And also, the things that we would do when we were younger, we're just finding that we're not having as much energy for. And
Mm.
it's interesting to hear how that impacts your income. How does that feel for you to kind of know that that is impacting your income as you age?
I think there's a little bit of fear around it, but there's also I've got so much muscle memory of I can always make more money. Like
Mm,
I back myself. So I have a confidence. I basically left full-time employment 9 years ago to start Shell Shocked, and I think I have made myself unemployable because I don't want to work for anyone ever again. I cannot imagine going into an office. My biggest thing is I have such a problem with authority. So imagine working as a journalist where it is so brutal. Like it is the most brutal industry. And so most of my career, it was all about being yelled at in newsrooms and being in very competitive environments and all of that sort of thing. And yet you didn't get paid that much. So now with Shell Shocked, I'm earning more than I ever have, and have less stress. Don't have any, I don't fight with the boss because I am the boss. Like that's much easier. But with it comes the downside of I don't have sick pay. I don't
mm,
have any of those benefits that a full-time employee does. So things like last year when I was considering a hysterectomy, because of my excessive bleeding with my perimenopause, looking at having 6 weeks off work
mm.
actually had me in tears, rocking in a quarter. Um, and in the end, it was a factor in deciding that I didn't have the hysterectomy, that I actually had an ablation instead. So things like that, I don't think people talk about often enough, particularly when you run your own business. There's a lot
Mm.
of pressure. One thing I've become much more comfortable with is big months and small months income wise. And that was only through 9 years of experience, because at first it terrified me to the point where I was almost numb. But I'm much better at looking at the year rather than this month, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and again, like these are all things that people talk about, right? Like, yeah, health and what happens if you take time off your business, and
Yeah.
if you do take 6 months or 6 weeks off, and then that turns into 6 months, for example,
Yeah.
then what? As a
Yeah.
psychologist,
I also, oh, sorry. Yep. I want
I
to
was
hear.
I was just gonna, what's a psychologist saying? Just as a psychologist, like one of the things that we have, like as a psychologist in private practice, is if something does happen to you, we need to have like a plan in place so that, all of our notes now, client
Oh,
files
yeah.
and all of that, because there is such a
That continuous care
yeah, to
has
providing
to
that,
be
yeah.
passed over. Yeah,
And,
that's
and and you're right, like we
interesting.
don't think of that in our business because we get so busy, I think, working like in our business that it can be hard to work on our business as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also hard. Like I had a look at income protection and the amount that they were going to charge was astronomical. And my husband's nearly 60 and he is a sound recordist, cameraman, and editor. So a lot of him is lifting heavy shit. That's what he
Mm.
does. And he was basically uninsurable. And I'm like, that does not reflect him. That does not reflect our business. So we actually crunched the numbers and went, we are actually going to be fine without income protection because we have set ourselves up. But I feel really, I still feel annoyed about it. I still feel like um, it's probably the biggest disadvantage of running your own business and the biggest advantage of being an employee is having that sick leave, long service leave, all of those benefits that you just don't give yourself when it's your business.
And hearing you talk about this, and I don't know how this lands for you, what I'm wondering though is because what I've identified is that there's kind of 6 predominant money blocks that people have. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I will talk about the safety one because I just want to see how it lands for you, which is this sense of making sure that you have money in the account, a buffer, and if it falls below a certain point, then there can be that real sense of fear because it's like, oh my goodness, my buffer of whatever that amount is has dipped below. And then there can be this desperation to
Mm.
refill the money tank, so to speak. Does that play out for you?
Oh yeah, that hits hard. Um, here's a confession. I check my bank balance for all the accounts every single night before I go to sleep.
Mm,
It's just a habit that I do, but it's a comfort. So I have a certain amount in our business account and a
mm.
certain amount in my private account. My husband and I do not have joint accounts. We can so go into that because I had a bad divorce. But I know in my logical head that it would be better to have some of that money sitting in the home loan account and not getting charged interest. But I
Mm.
also know for my peace, for my sleep, for my anxiety levels, having that money right there that I can see really does make me feel comfortable. And yeah, checking it every day. I don't know if that's a bit obsessive compulsive, but but it's something that I always do. And I also get a feeling of pride about it because I have never been given a leg up. I have never
Mm.
I have friends who've got very wealthy parents, and I've got friends who had a parent who worked in the media industry, so they got a free ride to get
Mm.
in. And
Mm.
so I kind of feel, yeah, this sense of pride that every single dollar that I've earned, I have earned. I have worked hard for. So that's why, someone like me, I've never gambled in my life. I have never bought a lotto ticket. My parents took me to Jupiter's Casino on the Gold Coast for my 18th birthday, and Dad gave me $50 and Mum gave me $50, and they're like, "Go crazy! You're old enough now." And I just walked around all the gaming tables and had the free drinks. And then when I met up with them later, and they had spent their money on the pokies, they're like, "How much money did you make?" I'm like, $100 because I had not spent any of it. But that's me. I'm like, if I'm going to spend my money, I want a return. So like, if I want to spend that money on a fancy cocktail, I get that return. I am very happy with that. But I'm just not. I'm not into risk, and I don't. I have a low tolerance for people who fritter away money on gambling and stuff like that, and
Mm,
did have a problem gambler in our family, but I had these strong feelings about anti-gambling 10 years before I was exposed to any of that
mm,
situation, and they nearly lost their house,
mm,
and that was just on the pokies. Like, I just don't think that people realize how dangerous and what a gateway it is, the pokies. So, yeah, so I think I do put a strong value on my money, and I I know I got that from my parents, but I also I was just listening to the episode you did with Mary Miller. I also have this guilt where I now earn so much more money than my parents did.
mm.
And I still ask my dad for financial advice, and he has been amazing and he's helped me my whole life. But he says to me, "This is above my knowledge level. I think you need to speak to a financial advisor. I'm so proud of you." And, he's like, it's terrifying for him because he was a school principal,
Mm.
and his salary when he finished after teaching for, 35 years or whatever, I think he was maybe 48 grand, you know? So and mum was less because she didn't have a teaching degree. I think mum was only like 35,000. When I got out of university, I actually worked in PR for 1 year, which I hated because I felt like a prostitute, but I'm a journalist. I like to expose those people rather than work for them, but I was paid 40 grand my first year out of uni, and my dad was on 38 working as a principal at the same time. So
That's
that's
wild.
pretty shocking, and then and again, this is, we have to factor in the time element, but it was 1994, and I then quit this PR job. Well, no, I kinda got sacked, but that's okay because I deserved it. Um, I then went to work for the ABC, and I was on 20 grand a year, and that was in 1994, 95. So, I had no problem with halving my salary because I knew it was gonna take me onto the path that I really wanted to be on.
And it's interesting though, because you said that you don't like risk financially.
Mm.
But and I hear that and I kind of understand what you're well, this is what I'm hearing from it anyway, is when you can see that there's a return on investment where it's going to benefit you in some way, your career, the cut in salary is okay.
Yes.
But when
So
you're
yeah, so here's what it is. When the risk is me, I will take that gamble. When
mm,
the risk is, uh, putting money over to a card dealer, that's not acceptable. So
yeah.
I I do have this really strong confidence in myself that I can earn money, that I can hustle, that I can I've I love my brain. I constantly am coming up with new ideas for arms of the business and what I can do, and it's just basically comes down to hours in the day for me to implement it.
How do you find that? Because I hear the hustle and I hear the limited hours. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things as well that I see with a lot of women where they're exhausted because they hustle, 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 not getting quite the income that they want. Like they know that there's more that they could be
Mm.
earning or they could be making, yet can't seem to find the time.
Yeah, so my husband and I have made a very conscious decision not to have staff. So I don't want to have employees. If
Mm,
we employ someone within our business, it's on a contract because I in journalism, when I was working at Fairfax, they kept promoting me, which was great. But I ended up getting to the point where I was an editor, so I wasn't writing, I was managing staff, and I freaking hate managing staff. I
mm.
don't care about their problems. I don't care about their leave. I just want to get the work done. So I think having that experience made me realize I'm not a manager. I am a solo kind of gal. And
Mm.
I'm just so fortunate that Darren and I have very similar work ethics, but we also support each other. And something that I've done, which some people might know through my Instagram, is I've started doing things called 0 days. And a 0 day is when I do exactly that, 0. So no work, no emails. I am cuddled on the couch with my 2 rescue puppies. I am catching up on Grey's Anatomy and all of my favorite shows. And I have found that even by having 1 0 day every 2 weeks, it fills me up and it is so worth it. I have been working very hard because I'm writing a book at the moment, which is crazy talk because that does not make you money, but um it it ate up my 0 days. So I ended up, I think I
Mm.
worked it out that in since I got back from my holidays in August, I think I'd only had 5 days off, which is not okay. So I actually scheduled last weekend 2 0 days, which is what's called a weekend. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, how about that? But I'm sure a lot of people listening, if you're running your own business, you know that you just don't get that. Even if it is only a couple of hours on a Saturday, or I'm just going to do some, my husband does the reconciling on zero and stuff like that. There's always those little things. It
Mm.
just means it's not a day off. It just
Yeah.
sucks your energy. So I really try and work on making sure that I can refill my cup. Because also what I do is I'm often giving a lot of energy,
Yeah.
and I'm an extrovert. I love that, but I also need some downtime. I need to unplug.
I do not get the whole extroverted thing. I
Really?
don't get it. I was talking to someone about that. I was actually talking about you. Because we were talking about extroversion and I'm like, I don't really know any extroverts. And then you popped in my mind. I'm like, no, wait,
Oh,
on. Shelly. Shelly is definitely an extrovert. I'm like,
so yeah. So
I
for
don't get
me,
it.
the best way to describe it is COVID. I was like a sunflower without sun because I was just shriveled over. Because I was still emceeing events, but it was online and I was just looking at a little green dot. I didn't get people's faces. I
Yeah.
didn't get that energy in the room. I didn't get the cuddles at the end. And it was awful. Absolutely awful. My husband is an introvert. So we
Uh,
are such opposites. So now it's honestly, he's just like, go out with your friends. You need to let the steam off, like you're climbing up the walls. And he thinks he's hilarious anyway, but he describes himself as friends free by choice because he's like, I'm a solo guy.
I
He's like,
love
if he
that.
could just be him and the dogs on the couch forever, he would be happy. But no, I can't, yeah, it's hard for me. I live with an introvert, so I get it, but oh my God, it powers me up. And being up on stage when I'm particularly now I'm doing more keynotes as well as emceeing. When I'm doing a keynote, it means I'm sharing something that's really mine. And I've got one at the moment that I'm doing about menopause in the workplace, and I'm so proud of it. And I almost float off stage afterwards. Like it is such a great feeling. It is
See, that
such a
I
great feeling.
understand. That I get. The
Yeah.
speaking I get, but just the friends and the people don't get it. But I don't get it. But I love it. I love it for you. And I see like for listeners context, we met at a business chicks
Yeah.
conference in 2024 in Port Douglas. And I could just see Shelley's energy. And me, I was like, okay, I'm calling it a night. And Shelley's still there,
Yeah.
having a blast. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. But I want to, like, you mentioned your husband, and I'm super curious because you said that you're opposites in every way. And you have this amazing effervescent energy. And I don't want you to be that sunflower that shrivels. So thank God we're out of COVID.
Yeah.
That being said, though, like how have you found like the dynamics of money between the two of you?
Yeah, it's been really important. So I've been married before, and in my first marriage, we had joint accounts, and basically all we had was joint debt, and a joint credit card that was sitting at least $20,000. Like we were just hemorrhaging in interest for no reason. Like it just we didn't have anything to show for it. It was just that we were living beyond our means. So when I left him, I had to borrow money from a friend to book the hotel room because I didn't want to use the joint credit card. One, because I
Mm,
didn't want him to know where I was. And two, because I didn't feel comfortable using our joint money to leave him, basically.
mm,
So that was such a horrible learning curve. And then when I met Darren, he was 20 grand in debt and
mm,
I had my own investment property and I was doing well.
mm,
And so we sat down and I'm like, I'm not going to be taking on your debt. Like that is not going to happen. And
mm,
so he was just like, I will sort that out and I will prove it to you before we get married. And he
mm,
cleared that $20,000 debt within 3 years before we
mm,
got married. And now we have bought a property together. We bought 2 properties together. One is our home that we're in on the Gold Coast. So that is definitely the 2 of us. We had an investment property on the Northern Beaches in Sydney that we bought together. And I had my investment property, which was up near Noosa. Now, his name was not on that investment property at all. That would
mm,
not be shared. But I also I had the shit marriage and now I've got the amazing one where we talk about it and he's like, "Let's put it down in paper. Let's get a legal document so you don't worry that I'm going to try and take anything from you
mm,
if things don't work out." Um, so we are very open about that
mm,
and we have the hard money conversations because I am the show pony and he is the workhorse. So I'm the one up on stage, rah, rah, rah. But he has this incredible sense of value that I don't think I have, or I don't think, and I think if the roles were reversed and he was the breadwinner and I was more in the role of support,
mm,
I don't know how my ego would take that or if I would value myself. He values himself. He is like, you can't do what you do without me. You can fly around and do 22 flights in 6 weeks because
mm,
I'm
mm,
here. I'm looking after the dogs. I'm taking care of the house. I'm picking up the airport. I am mopping up your tears because you're overworked. He ha- stands so strongly in that
mm.
that makes me value him as well. So, yeah, we're on the same page. And then interestingly, because interest rates were just so horrific, we both made the decision to sell both of our investment properties so that I think we now owe about 150 grand on our home. So we
Mm,
will soon be debt free. And I've had so many people say that was a bad decision and you should never sell an investment property and all that sort of stuff. Again, it
mm,
comes down to your own, how you feel about things. But we went from feeling sick to feeling great. And
mhm,
I just think that some people put themselves under so much pressure and put marriages under pressure because of the amount of debt you have. And we've just taken that away. And for us, it's been great. We do have a financial advisor who is now like, okay, we're paying off the house. That's fantastic. But we are putting more money into super. We are going to do this. So
mm,
he's guiding us. But yeah, it's been, I think the best thing is just the open conversations about it. And sometimes we have blow ups, but they last half an hour and then, most time it's me who apologizes because I've been a bit of a shit. But but it's transparent, open, and if there are any concerns, we talk about it.
I
I love
love
it.
that so
Mm,
much because I think money is a real difficult conversation for people to talk about, even with their partners. And
mm,
that people do talk about it with their partners. And because we bring our own money story into our relationship, it can be really conflicting. And I see it so often where one partner has one money story, another partner has another money story, and they're trying to kind of soothe their anxiety because they've both got money anxiety. And it's like they're butting heads and there's conflict around it. Whereas what I hear from you is he kind of helps you with that safety piece
mm,
of, okay, well, and I don't know, this is me assuming, but we don't need this piece of paper because I'm not going to screw you over, but I know
Yeah.
that it's going to help you feel better. So let's do this thing. And that's really lovely to hear. But what I heard and what's been, I've held in my mind is he knows his worth. And
Mhm.
what I also heard from that, or what I took from that, is I wish I had more of that.
Oh, yeah. I still have struggled with how much I charge and valuing myself. And I worked with a business coach who's also a psychologist, and she would stop me and I would say things like, "But I'm just a journalist." And she'd be like, "What's the just about?" There's no just before that. You are very successful. Um, I I have struggled. I'm incredibly confident, but I still have those moments where I'm like, holy shit, I'm just a girl from Kingaroy. What the hell am I doing here? You know? So there's a bit of a battle with that, with value. Um, but I also have an agent. So my agent, when it comes to the big things that are like me and I'm representing a brand or I'm
Mm,
like even emceeing an event, she negotiates the money, which I love. Because she is very comfortable. But I don't know. I don't know if it's a me thing or a female thing, but I have always felt, oh, I'm not worth that much. I
mhm,
don't feel comfortable charging that much. Um, I had an interesting, situation. So I've been teaching media training for nearly 30 years. Like the whole time I've worked as a journalist, it's been a little bit of a side hustle that I have done.
mm,
And then through my business coach, and then I also have another group of business women that I work with called the Accountability Circle, and that's a small group, and with that, we have to be completely transparent with our financials.
mm,
With, 8 other women, oh my god. But I've actually loved it. It's actually been empowering,
mm,
and they are just like, "You are not charging enough." And so I put my rate up for my media training. I think it was like 2,500 and I increased it to 3,500. Like the jump was $1,000,
mm,
but I had not increased that for 9 years. So
mm.
it's like, and you know what? No one batted an eyelid. I did not lose any clients. It was just like, holy shit, this is just me holding me back here, not anyone else.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, right? It's interesting, isn't it?
I,
So yeah.
I have to share a story on that because I, what I find is I had a client once who said, I really did not want to tell this client that I didn't want to work with them. So what I did was I decided to triple my prices because surely if I tripled my prices, they would walk away. They did not bat an eyelid. And and I was like, you know what would have worked even better is if you learned how to say no. That probably
Yeah,
because as
yeah.
women, we fundamentally undercharge because of society. I
Yep.
see from a young age, women's worth is very much dependent on what can you do for me?
Yes.
And we carry that throughout our whole life. And we have to work to detangle
Mm.
all of that stuff. And even with your agent negotiating, like, I love that. And it's also very common, like, oh, thank God they can deal with that. I don't
Yeah.
have to sit with that discomfort of having to negotiate because that gives me, like, for me, as you were saying that, I felt like this constriction in my throat, like, oh, like
Yeah.
it can feel really uncomfortable,
Yeah, and I
particularly for
think
women.
I still have to do it within my own business because my agent doesn't get commission on shell-shocked work. She only gets it on me being, doing
Yeah.
my stuff.
Yeah.
So I still have to do it, but I'm definitely getting to the point where I am now like, I will say no to jobs that are not worthwhile. I
Mm,
will say no to them because I know how much effort I have to put in. I know how much prep there is, and
mm,
if they're not willing to pay, I'm not willing to give up that time because I can earn it in other parts of my business. So
Mm,
that's been something that's been really annoying because moving from Sydney to the Gold Coast is
mm,
they just do not pay the same rates up here. Like when it comes to speaking gigs and emceeing, like
mm.
I'm happy to be open about it. I get paid about 6 grand for an emceeing gig. And I can tell you that that is probably 2 days of prep and research and writing all of the intros. And then it is a full day of me up on stage, keeping the energy up, keeping everything to time. And that's a very standard rate. On the Gold Coast, they pay 1,500. Like that's not worth it. So my agent is just like, get on a plane. Because the pay difference between the two states is just astronomical. So I was getting really frustrated and I was wanting more work here, but
Mm.
I've actually just gone, you know what? They're not ready. They're not ready for this. So I'm sorry. What I am finding is Sydney companies or national companies are having conferences on the Gold Coast and they'll pay the 6 grand. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, I'm not going to play small just because you guys haven't caught up. I'm just not.
I
I
love that.
yeah.
And I love that. And oh, I love that. And it makes me think of this time where I had a conversation with someone who was complaining that they got offered a speaking gig. And when they got to the event, they found out that somebody had been paid to speak. And they were like,
Mm.
oh, well, I should have been paid to speak as well. Me being me, because, I can't help myself sometimes. I was like, well, should you? Or should you have like asked if you had this expectation or you had a desire to want to be paid? Why didn't you ask?
Yeah.
And she didn't like that very much. Um,
But that's the hard conversation to have.
right.
Um,
And that's why I want to talk about money because I think we
yeah,
don't have these hard conversations. And I'm so sick and tired of women just expecting things to be handed on a silver platter because we should deserve it. Well,
yeah.
no, sorry. No one's going to come and just give you what you want. Fucking take the space and ask for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I think it's different too. Like I'm 30 years into my career. So when I am teaching, my workshops on Speak with Impact, and a lot of people are
Mhm.
wanting to do speaking gigs, I have to remind them that I started at a very low rate. I
Yeah.
started doing things for free. You've got to get your runs on the board. You can't go from zero to hero like
Mhm.
instantly. So I think that there is a little bit of earning your stripes, but then once you've earned them, don't let them go.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that's such a good point. And I have to actually hear that reminder sometimes because I'm definitely one of those people that wants to go from 0 to 100. And I
Yeah,
constantly have conversations with my coach who reins me back a little. And it's good to be ambitious. Like, and I do think the
yeah.
ambition is good.
What I have found when I coach, not coach, I'm not a coach, but when I advise people around this sort of stuff is
Mm,
if you're not getting paid, what are you getting out of it? And it could be
mm,
I experience up on stage because you need time on those boards.
yeah.
It could be publicity. It could be that you will then pay a videographer to film you at the event and then you'll have a sizzle reel that you can send to speaking agencies and get more gigs. So if you're going to do it for free, make sure you're getting something out of it. If Does that make sense? Like, so there's a
100%.
value, but it's just may not be a dollar value.
And that's the thing that I find that's a really good point. And I think sometimes we have this expectation where we should get money as a reflection of like that's the tangible outcome that we're looking for. And I was on a panel over the weekend, and one of the things that we were talking about is money. Another name for it is currency.
Yeah.
And what,
Oh, I like that. I'm a
right?
journo. I like words, and that
Yeah.
that just hits. Yeah.
Right, right. And money is currency. But what you've described is like there's a currency, it's an exchange. That's
Mhm.
literally what it is. And so you're right that it's not always about money as the thing that you're going to get in exchange, but we place such a high value on that as being the outcome. We forget, and I know I'm guilty of this too. Like, I'm not immune, money mindset coach, psychologist, like, I'm not immune to wanting that either. But money comes, like, and that's where I think, like, when we start to see money as abundant, like you were saying, like, you can get money in other ways. It will come, but you've got to get your rungs up on the board and then it will come.
Mm.
Is
It's
how
kind
I
of
kind of see it.
investing in yourself. It's
Yeah.
investing in you. And I know I felt really frustrated when I was in Sydney recently and I caught up with some people that I used to work with who I'm not friends with, like they were colleagues.
Mm,
Some of them were my old bosses. And the attitude, and they're still employees, and the attitude was, oh, you moved to Queensland. You must have really taken a hit with your income doing that.
mm,
And I'm like, no, I'm still earning about 5 times what I did as an employee.
mm,
And it just, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, just going, you don't get it. You will never run a business. You will never have that extra hustle. You want to clock on, clock off. That is your decision, but don't
mm.
make any assumptions about me because that is not my path.
It's really interesting
And I
you.
hope they're listening to this right now.
Oh, they probably won't be, because they'll be thinking, money, I don't need to work on my
Yeah,
relationship with
true.
money. Unless they see your name attached and they're like, oh, I want to see how
Yeah, how much she earns. Yeah.
yeah. Because people do, they like to judge, they like to
Yeah.
compare, and they like to put other, and it's hard because we use other people as a rung to measure where we
Yeah.
fit in.
Actually, Ellie, remember we had that conversation at Business Chicks about two friends and I declaring how much we earned to each other.
Oh, yes.
So I think this is so valuable and that women don't do it enough.
Yeah.
Um, so the three of us, uh, two of us were employees at the time and one ran her own business. And we all went to Bali on a girls' trip. And it was not an expensive holiday or anything like that. But we were sitting around the pool talking, and I'm just like, I have no idea what you guys earn. Like, one of
Mm,
my friends was in the same industry as me, and the other one, so one was a journo and one was in PR.
mm,
And so we were like, we should just say it. But then all of us got like pains in our stomach and giggly and just like, oh my God, this is so confronting. And
mm,
so we just went, okay, on the count of three, everyone's going to say their income. 1, 2, 3. And we blurted it out. And then it was like, holy shit. And I was earning the least. So I was on 120. My other friend who worked in the same industry was on 180. And our friend who ran her own business paid herself 250 a year, but was making millions.
mm,
And we had an assumed knowledge, but had no idea. So
mm,
what happened after ripping that Band-Aid off
mm,
is we then all supported each other. And I'm like, how the hell did you get 180? And she's like, here's how I negotiated it, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, we learnt from each other. And then we had really interesting conversations about running your own business. And now the three of us run our own businesses.
I have goosebumps, like, from head to toe hearing that. In the most positive way, because you're so spot on. And again, that's why I do the work that I do, because women don't talk about money. Women don't. And we've been taught not to. We've been
Oh,
taught,
it's taboo. It's impolite. I just don't I think it's like you know what it is? It's holding us back.
yeah,
Men
it is.
talk about it. They talk about it on the golf course.
Yeah.
They brag, but and we would hate anyone to think that we were bragging.
Mm-hmm.
When you know what? Sometimes you should maybe not brag, but give yourself a pat in the back.
Yeah. Well, I
Because
think
you don't get free money, you work for it.
absolutely. And I also think it's not like the connotation is brag, But well, actually, it's exactly what you said. Reframe that to, well, hang on a minute. It's giving yourself a pat on the back and it's acknowledging your achievements.
Yeah.
When we talk about money, just like you did with your friends, it wasn't a competition of, oh my God, I'm earning like less than like half of
Mm,
what you're earning. It wasn't about that. It was about, how can I leverage that so that I can be financially free myself? And that's what I want to empower women to be able to do, to create that financial freedom. But we can't do that if we're scared, if we're sitting there going, I don't know how much you earn, but you look like you earn a lot because you got a nice bag, but I don't want to ask. So I love that. And that's why I wanted to have this
mm.
conversation with you, because you are, like me, a disruptor. And I have found that hard with myself, because I've always wanted to fit in and, fit in the little box. And once I realized I don't belong in a box, then boom, out I've come. But
Yeah.
I know, like, you have that, you say the things that people won't say. So I really am so honored that you joined me on the show and spoke and shared, because I know people listening, the women listening, are just going to be like, oh my gosh, relate on so many levels. And what I do want to share is, one, if people are listening and they're thinking, oh my gosh, you've mentioned some money blocks and you want to uncover what yours are, I have a quiz that is really designed to help you understand what that money block that you're holding, that predominant money block is. So I'm going to pop the link in the show notes for you if you're interested. And Shelly, what I also want is, because you've mentioned quite a few different offerings that you've got at the moment, I'm going to link them in the show notes for you. But can you tell our listeners where they can go to find you and obviously your little doggies?
Oh, yes, my cute puppies, Mr. Barkley and Maui. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'm at Shelly Horton 1, the number 1, which is weird because there's a guy in America with like 4 followers who's Shelly Horton. A guy. I'm like, "What?" Anyway, I've got
We need to vote on
50,000
that.
followers. So unfair. Um, the thing that I'm passionate about the moment is my Speak with Impact workshops, which is
Mm,
a new offering that I started this year, and it has sold out. And I'm thrilled about that. And that's about empowering mainly women, and mainly smaller businesses or people who work within a company and don't have the confidence. It's giving them the confidence to speak up, whether it is at a
mm,
job interview or if it's promoting their own company or maybe even just doing, showing up on social media. So
mm,
I do that here on the Gold Coast with my husband because we have our own studio. We've converted our double garage into a broadcast studio, which is amazing. So that's my favorite thing. But then the other thing is that I'm passionate about is perimenopause and the workplace. So if anyone needs someone to come and speak at their workplace, I am your gal because I got
mm.
knocked to the ground with perimenopause, but I fought my way back up, and I truly believe this is a workplace issue and I can help a lot of people. So they're all, I think there's a theme with you and I, and it's like it's taboo topics. The
Mm.
more we talk about it, the more we're gonna help people.
I love that so much, Shelly. And yeah, love that we're both disruptors and are sharing that. So thank you so much. I'm going to pop all that information in the show notes for people. And for everyone else listening, please tune in again next week. I cannot wait to share another episode with you then.